Here's how to get the film look. Load your film, meter for exposure, adjust your aperture, and start rolling. That's it. Of course you can simulate this look, but the most authentic way is to shoot with film. In this video, we're going to talk about what it's like to shoot with film and why you might choose this over a color grade emulation. We'll talk about cameras, film stock, processing, scanning, how to deal with your footage in DaVinci Resolve, and how much it costs. In case you haven't realized it, we're shooting on film right now. In this video, or should I call it in this film, you're going to see us use a mix of 8, 16, 35mm film, and digital. It's 2025. Why is film still relevant? Why should you care about a technology that's over 100 years old? The answer will be different for everyone.
For a lot of people, its rich contrast, softer highlights, and distinctive grain evokes a timeless cinematic aesthetic, which many associate with high-quality storytelling. The film look is shorthand for, this must be a quality production. That's one of the reasons so many productions are graded with the film look. But it is beautiful in its own right. Its unique color palette and grain adds a patina to whatever you shoot, adding something engaging and dynamic to your image. So even without film's history, it is still a relevant tool.
Now, we're not exploring the subjectivity of whether or not a project should have a film look. The better question might be, why would you choose to spend money and time shooting on actual film? Here's 3 reasons why. Authenticity, color, and finally, cost.
First, in a world where synthetic content is easier than ever to produce, film's authenticity has an impact. Second, color. Engineers have spent over a century refining the chemical formula of film to produce the most pleasing colors they possibly can. And finally, cost. It can have a positive impact on the way you prepare and shoot. It adds constraints that shape creative decisions in a way that digital cannot.
We're going to show you what we use to shoot film. First, let's talk about film stock. There are 4 main sizes. Each format has different qualities. 8mm is a lower quality consumer format. Because of its size, it's more grainy and has less resolution.
For various reasons, a lot of 8mm cameras have poor registration.
Registration is the camera's ability to hold the film consistently in the same place. Poor registration means the image will weave. But the plus is it's inexpensive, and some people love that lo-fi look. 16mm is 4 times the size of 8mm, give or take. It's a professional format. Many cameras have good registration and include features like crystal sync. That's the camera's ability to run the motor at a constant speed, so sound can be synced to the picture later. 16mm has a really nice balance of aesthetic and resolution. You might be surprised to know it's cheaper to shoot than 8mm thanks to economies of scale. This is 35mm, which the majority of films of the last century was shot on. It's about 4 times the size of 16mm. Different 35mm cameras record different sized images. The size of the image is measured in perforations. They're the holes on the side of the film used by the camera's movement. As you can imagine, it gets more expensive the larger the image you shoot because you'll consume more film. Finally, 65mm. Like with other formats, you can shoot different sizes. The 2 most common are 5perf and 15perf. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see us shoot 65mm. We're shooting on a variety of lenses. Some vintage ingenue, some modern Canon Samaya primes, and we love these Atlas Mercuries on 4perf. You'll need to choose a film stock to shoot on. Reversal produces a positive image, so it can be played directly on a projector. The majority of productions shoot on negative. There's different flavors. Typically, if you're shooting under warm tungsten lights, you'll want tungsten balance film. If you're shooting in daylight or 5500 Kelvin lights, you'll typically want daylight balance film. However, you can still get great results when your film doesn't match the lighting. Finally, choose the film speed. Film is formulated with different sized photosensitive crystals. Higher speed film has larger crystals, which makes it more sensitive to light. This yields more perceivable grain. Before we continue, can we show you how we find music for our videos? Most library music websites feature filters that allow you to search by mood, genre, and instrumentation. Even then, it can still be hard finding the right music for the edit. Audiio has just launched a brand new AI assistant called Hans AI that helps you to find the music for your videos. Simply describe the kind of video you need to score, and Audio's AI will suggest 6 tracks that might fit it. Alternatively, you can use Link Match. Feed it a song you like, and it will find tracks from Audio's library that match the genre, style, and energy. We love it when AI is used to enhance our creativity rather than replace it. Audiio has a ton of other features you'll love, like stems, so you can more easily remix the music. But we think your favorite feature will be the incredible price. Using our discount code, you can get an entire year of Audiio for only $60. Alternatively, Audiio also has a special offer on their lifetime subscriptions. You can get lifetime access to their music catalog for just $199. A big thank you to Audiio for supporting our videos. Sadly, no one makes new motion picture cameras anymore, but that's okay. There's a healthy secondhand market. Here's the cameras we're using. This is the Eclair ACL. It's French, it's from the 80s, and it shoots 16mm. It has detachable coaxial magazines, a crystal motor, and it runs silent. That means it's perfect for recording sync sound. Originally, this was a regular 16mm camera, but it's been modified to shoot a wider Super 16 image. It will get about 11.5 minutes at 24 frames per second from a 400-foot roll. This is the Oriflex 35-3. As the name suggests, it shoots 35mm. This one has a 4-perf movement. Open gate, it shoots a 1.43 image. You'll get about 4.5 minutes per 400-foot roll. This is a noisy camera. It's not well suited for recording sync sound. The 16 and 35mm works with longer lengths of film, which come on cores. They have to be handled in pitch black dark. That's what this dark bag is for. Loading can be tricky, but muscle memory really helps. Most people tend to tape the edges of the magazines. It's not necessary, but it stops you from accidentally opening the magazine and ruining the film. It also protects against light leaks if the magazine seals are old. Just because you're shooting on film doesn't mean you can't take advantage of modern equipment. We're using modern lenses and in some instances, DJI's Focus Pro. There's a couple of other pieces of equipment that are incredibly important. First, a light meter. This is a Sekonic L858D. Film is sensitive to underexposure, but it handles overexposure really well. So when in doubt, lean towards overexposure. We typically rate the film a little bit slower than its box speed. This means the meter will encourage us to overexpose the film slightly. Secondly, we're shooting sync sound. Some modern film cameras can record timecode onto the film, but not our cameras. So we need a solution to sync sound and picture. We're huge fans of Tentacle's timecode ecosystem. We're recording our audio using a Sennheiser MKE2 connected to a Track E. On our digital cameras, we can simply connect a sync to feed the camera timecode. When shooting on film, we're using Tentacle's new Smart Slate. I'll show you how to deal with this in post later. When you finish shooting, you'll need to package your film up and send it to a lab. Welcome to Kodak's UK lab located at Pinewood Studios. We're here to see how the sausage gets made, or more correctly, gets processed.
This is Andy. He's our guide for the day and is going to teach us about the development process. The first steps take place inside the darkroom, where individual customer reels are spliced together into 2,000-foot lab reels. Of course, we've got the lights on to film, but everything that Andy is demonstrating would be done in pitch black dark.
These are 2,000-foot magazines. This is a 35mm one. We have 65mm and 16mm magazines here as well. We could be putting anything up to 20 100-foot daylight spools in here, or we could put 5 400-foot rolls in here.
So then how do you make sure that you keep each person's reels separate from the other, and you're keeping track of everything and not mixing them up.
Okay, so we've got these twin check numbers, and basically what we'll do is on the tail end of the customer's roll, there's some stickers, and we put one on the end of the roll and then one on the film can. So similar to when you're getting your stills done, it's basically a number that we tally up, and then when we take it off the end of the processor, we'll make sure that the number corresponds on the film to the film can.
Next, Andy showed us how they join the film together on these giant lab rolls. Interestingly, the development machine is sprocketless, so the registration of these splices aren't important.
We use these tape splicers. We feed it up until you can feel the little stop there, and then you'll pull the tape across, press it down nice and tight. Obviously we're in complete pitch black. And then fold that around nicely, and that can easily withstand the amount of tension that the film processor produces. The most crucial job that we're doing here is we're looking for perf damage. So quite often we'll find perf damage on the film, and that will really reduce the integrity of the film. Our film processor maybe produces about 500 grams of tension, and film can easily withstand 2 or 3 kilos. But if they haven't closed the gate, or if they've got a camera jam, or for whatever reason, and you've just got the smallest perf nick, it can massively reduce it. So if you look there, it really, yeah. So what we're doing, we're winding through in pitch black, and we put our elbow here to hold back a bit of tension. We're winding through and we're feeling for any of that perf damage.
That's right. Every single foot of film that gets sent to the lab gets hand checked.
Once the film is in these light-proof magazines, they can be handled outside of the darkroom and loaded onto the processing machines. Because leader is added to the beginning and end of each lab roll, they can be handled without exposing film.
The lab has 3 processing lines. This one is currently set up for 65 mil, and this for 16.
On the day we visited, they were processing 65 mil, but of course the process is the same for any size of film. The developing machines are in this room, but they are fed through a series of pipes from the room next door, where the chemicals are stored and prepared.
It's time to talk about development.
Film feeds from the lab rolls into the light-proof developing machine. Along the way, it's going to pass through 6 different chemical baths and a handful of wash stations before emerging at the other end fully processed. First, the film passes through a pre-bath, which softens the anti-halation layer, which is then washed off. Next, the developer. This converts the exposed silver halides to metallic silver and forms the negative image. The stop bath contains acids that stop the developer from continuing to develop. This allows very precise control over development times. Bleach oxidizes and removes the metallic silver. The fixer removes any remaining unexposed silver halides. And finally, stabilizer helps to preserve the film by preventing fading and mold growth. And that's it. The film is out of the baths and on its way through the dryer. They can lift all those rollers out of the chemical baths for inspection and maintenance. What's cool though is that it helps you to understand the path the film takes.
Basically, a film processor runs at a set speed. This one runs at 66 feet per minute. So the more strands in a bath, the more time it takes to get in and out. So because this only has a few strands, it's in and out within 15 seconds. This is our longest bath on the processor. It's the developer, which is in for 3 minutes. This is the crucial part of the process where we control the temperature to within 0.1 of a degree. Speed or temperature massively affects how well the developer works. If we wanted to push your film one stop, we could either slow the machine down so it spent 16% more time in the bath, or we could increase the temperature of the developer by 2.5 degrees, and both will equate to 1 stop.
So push or pull developing is controlled by either the speed or temperature. Once the film has been developed, bleached, and fixed, it still requires the utmost of care.
We go into the dry box for 6 minutes. We control the temperature and the humidity of the dry box very finely to make sure that the film dries at the perfect amount of time. When film is wet, it doesn't hold static, but once film gets dry, it actually starts to generate static. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our film processor dries at the perfect time to make sure that it's not over dried and it's not under dried.
So when the reel's done, do you have to stop the whole machine, take it off before you put a new reel on?
No. So the way they work is we have a feed elevator and a takeoff elevator.
Elevators are able to store large lengths of film by wrapping it round and round these rollers, kind of like a pulley. At the beginning of the machine, the elevator stores spare film. That means when the lab roll runs out, it can continue to feed film into the machine for about a minute. Once the new roll is spliced in, the elevator will recharge, so it's ready for the next roll. At the end of the machine, the other elevator works the opposite way. When the take-up roll is changed, it will start growing so the machine can continue processing film. And of course, once the next take-up roll is attached, it will empty the elevator, ready for the next change.
Andy's going to show us how that works in reality.
So when the film runs out, what happens is this clamp down roller will come down and hold that film in that position. So I'll replicate that now. So now you can see the film stop. That would be when the film was ran out. We've taken that magazine off, put the next magazine on, done the same staples.
And we can see it all still running.
So basically the machine's running at 56 feet per minute, and we've got a couple of 100 feet of film in this feed elevator, which is continuing to run in at that same speed so that it's not stopping in the bath for longer. Once that hits the top and the top micro switch light lights up, we know we're bang in trouble. So we can never have that happen.
Okay.
Which is why we've always got spare staple guns. We're always prepared. And even though it sounds like a short time, 45 seconds, for us it's easily doable in 10 seconds.
Okay.
Now this is pretty cool. Remember we said there's actual silver in the film? Once it's washed out during the bleach process, this machine reclaims the silver so it can be recycled.
There's lots of little details that need to be just right. So every day they run a series of tests before processing any film.
What we have here is a control strip, and we run these every day. They're pre-exposed by Kodak and then they're sent to us, and they also have a reference strip which tells us what we should be aiming for. See here, you can see the points of exposure up to around about maybe here, and then they almost go invisible because there's such small incremental changes in exposure. Corrections are made every single day to make sure that whether you send your film to us in a week, in 6 months, we're always bang on the Kodak aim.
After all the developing and drying, this is where the film gets respooled. Now those lab reels need to be split back into individual customer orders in the assembly room. There's an interesting challenge when processing 35mm film.
On 35mm, you can have 3 perf, 4 perf, 2 perf. So we run it through these synchronizers, and basically what happens is we'll line up the first frame. When we start winding through, we're starting off with the tail end of the customer's film. We'll put a hole punch in it. On the very first frame that we see, we'll hole punch it so the guy is in scanning knows that's the final frame. And then as we're winding through, every time it goes to black, what we need to make sure is when picture comes back in, it stays within these frame lines. Because obviously sometimes when you stop rolling and you want to clean the gate, you could actually take the film out of the gate, and then when you put the film back in, there's a good chance it's not going to be what we call in rack. It's not going to be put back in the exact same position. It might be 1 perf further down. So what would happen then is when picture comes back in, it's jumped out a perf or 2. So we always need to make sure we stay in rack, because otherwise when it goes to scanning, for instance, if you're looking at a person standing there, when it goes out of rack, all of a sudden his feet are on his head.
Next, they give the film a final clean.
When the film comes off the processor, it's really immaculately clean. But neg assembly, you know, you're in there, you're winding through it, and airborne fibres do land on the film. So finally, before it goes to scanning, we want to make sure that any of those fibres that landed on the film come off. So what we'd do is we'll put it on this film cleaner. It will go over all those PTRs and they will collect all those tiny little fibres.
So it doesn't get wet again?
No.
It's just basically taking a lint roller over it.
Exactly.
If you've only ordered development, then your film is ready to get picked up. However, most have it scanned while they're here. It's time to head to the scanning room.
At their London lab, Kodak has partnered with Digital Orchard for their scanning. Rolls of film come in here hot off the development machine, ready for scanning. Nora is scanning our film, and she's starting with the 16mm. First, she's lacing it up on the machine. You'll notice again that there's leader at the beginning and end of the film, so she's not having to handle our images. It was really cool getting to watch her work. Because every piece of film is different, for best results, the scanner needs to be adjusted for each job. She'll watch the entire scan, looking for issues.
Our time at Kodak was such a delight. It's awesome knowing they're part of our larger filmmaking team.
And thanks to Andy as well. Do us a favor, go follow him on Instagram. We asked Digital Orchard to provide our scans as ProRes 4444, and they look beautiful. We're using the scene cut detection tool in the media page to cut each reel into separate shots. I'm going to do this manually as sometimes the automatic detection can produce false positives that are more time consuming to deal with than just cutting manually in the first place. If you'd like to learn more about importing and splitting film scans, go check out this video. Next, let's fix the color. These clips are scanned using the Cineon log transfer function. Resolve color management is enabled in this project, so all I need to do is correctly identify the clip's color space. That's better. These shots on the Atlas Mercuries also need de-squeezing. That can be set up in clip attributes. Change the pixel aspect ratio to 1.5. The Tentacle Smart Slate is going to make it so easy to sync audio to my talking clips. You can see that the clip's timecode visible here doesn't match the timecode on the slate. Let's fix that. A little tip, switch off live media preview so your frame doesn't change when you move the mouse. Next, right-click on the clip in the media pool. Go to Clip Attributes, Timecode, and then type that timecode value into the current timecode box. And voila! Check that out. The clip's metadata shows the same timecode as the slate. We have another great video that goes into timecode that you can watch. Now I can select the audio clips from the day. I don't need to worry about selecting the exact clip. Resolve will handle that for me. And go to Sync Audio based on timecode. And check that out. I can see and hear me. That's worked perfectly. Our Tentacle Sync, Track E recorders, and slate is some of our favorite equipment. I cannot emphasize enough how much time they save us in production and post-production. Editing with these clips works just like normal. There's two slight twists though. This is an open gate scan. Some people like showing the gate and sprocket holes. For this project, we will clean that up. Secondly, there is a mixture of aspect ratios. First, the spherical 16mm. You can zoom in manually, but the scans are actually slightly larger than 4K. So if you take a 1x1 center crop, it cleans up those edges perfectly. It's similar with the anamorphic 35mm. Crop works great. It's wider than 16x9 though. Leon made a custom fusion tool for letterboxing. I can enter the aspect ratio I'm after. And that now looks so clean. Just like any other footage, these scans will need some light grading to give their best. But you have to admit, they already look amazing. If you have any questions about working with film and Resolve, leave them down in the comments.
Is shooting digital easier? For the majority of people, the answer is going to be yes. But there are many decisions filmmakers rightly make that add complexity to production. For example, shallow depth of field, camera movement, location production, and lighting all add complication. If easy was the only factor that drove decisions, your movie, doc, or commercial would look very different. Film can have a significant creative impact on your project. It does add some complexity and cost, but don't forget, shooting digital is not simple either. Let us expand on that by exploring the cost.
You'll need a camera, but this is a cost you still need to bear when shooting digitally, so we'll ignore it for now. But what we will say is that owning a film camera is more affordable than you might think. While a brand new digital cinema camera will depreciate quickly, a second-hand film camera might actually appreciate. The main cost is going to be stock, development, and scanning. The approximate prices on screen include everything. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a lot of money when digital is free. But is it? First, while you don't have to buy film and you get to reuse memory cards, when working professionally, you do need to budget for digital storage. Even a moderate shoot might generate several terabytes. Second, shooting ratios are usually much higher when shooting digital. This impacts production costs. Third, again, because shooting ratios are typically higher and sometimes more grading is required, post-production can be more expensive. And finally, the single biggest cost of production, whether on digital or film, is labor. For example, a crew shooting scripted content will typically manage between 1 and 2 minutes of final runtime per day. With just 10 crew members, daily costs for labor could easily hit between $5,000 and $10,000. That doesn't even include locations, talent, or logistics. A 5-to-1 shooting ratio will only add another $1,000 to the daily spend. It's more relevant to consider the cost of the project's final cost per minute than it is the shooting per minute. Film can be more expensive than shooting digital. There are some occasions where it's actually cheaper. Regardless though, either way, when your project reaches a certain critical budget, the additional budget of shooting on film starts to become less significant, especially when compared to the benefits it brings to your final product. To be clear, and for those who feel strongly, you don't have to shoot on film. Incredible movies are getting made on both film and digital. Ultimately, it's the artist that makes great art, not the canvas. We'll share our costs shortly, but first a word about the experience of shooting on film. We love shooting on any camera, but there's a special buzz for sure when heading out with film loaded. That buzz is further heightened by the inability to review images immediately and the need to wait for the dailies. Yep, with a video tap it is possible to watch playback, but still it's not the same. The 16mm looks great, but for us the 35mm really shines on a whole other level. Our shooting ratio on this project was incredibly lean. With digital, we'll often roll many takes. With film, we rehearsed and then rolled a single take or two. As a result, we've used takes out of necessity that are not as refined as they might have been, but that's a good thing. I think that energy comes across and adds to the video's authenticity. There was a 100-foot load of 16mm that I accidentally flashed with light. It still looks pretty cool though. Focus on the 16mm was more challenging on account of the smaller viewfinder. One of my vintage lenses does need recollimating, which didn't help. There's some occasional under and overexposure too, but despite all of that, we couldn't be happier with the footage. There's a mix of tungsten and daylight stock. For example, our interior studio shots were on 500T and lit with tungsten balanced LEDs. The exteriors were on 250D. London was shot with available light. On the other hand, the woods were shot with lights. A 200-watt Amaran panel for fill and a 600-watt aperture light storm with a Fresnel for kick. Both lights were running at full beams. A big thank you to Nora, Tim and Dan at Digital Orchard for providing such beautiful scans. So, what did this cost us? For stock, processing and scan, here's what we shot and here's what it costs. So about £2,000 in total. How does that sound to you? Let's put that in context. First, we're not suggesting 35mm as a viable medium for your next family holiday or regular YouTube videos. That's what you want 16mm for. This is a 30-minute video. It took at least 6 days to shoot, at least a week for planning, at least a week for the edit. There are a great deal of logistical, camera, grip, storage, and computing costs. If this was a commercially funded project, even with only 2 of us working, and even before we've added the cost of film, that's still a considerable amount of billable hours and expenses. How much would you charge for this job? What margin would you add in order to cover your overhead and make a small profit? With that number in mind, now consider the expense of shooting on film. That $2,000 to $3,000 for a moderate amount of stock and processing starts to become very palatable, especially when you consider the value it could add for your client.
We think it's awesome that both digital and film are available to creators. Shooting on film adds value to a project, and if you can articulate its benefits to your next client, maybe they'll be interested. Did you enjoy this? Let us know in the comments below, and let us know if you'd like to see more film-related content. A huge thank you to Audiio for continually supporting our channel, and a big thank you to Kodak for helping keep film alive and for welcoming us into their lab. Thank you for watching.